Go ahead and get started as everyone's coming in. Hi, everyone. My name is Arpine Bagdasarian. I'm the Administrative Director at the Women of Asphalt National. Welcome to today's webinar. We are Women of Asphalt. We're a community of professionals dedicated to advancing and empowering women in the asphalt industry. We have a membership of over 3,000 people in over 20 branches spanning 26 states across the US. And before we get started on today's webinar, I wanted to let you guys know about a very important save the date for our inaugural Women of Asphalt Day national event in conjunction with the World of Asphalt, taking place on March 27, 2024 in Nashville, Tennessee. Our conference will feature keynote speakers, panel discussions, and valuable networking opportunities. We'll have more details on registration coming soon, so please stay tuned for that. Before we dive into today's conversation, just a quick housekeeping note. If you think of any questions during the session, please feel free to just drop it in the Zoom chat box. We'll make sure to address it during the question and answer portion at the end of our webinar today. And with that, it is with great pleasure that we introduce today's fabulous webinar speaker, Terri Boozer. She is a remarkable woman in the construction and asphalt industry, and her career has spanned an impressive 46 years. She started her career in 1973 as a secretary in the construction industry. In just 2 years, she broke barriers by becoming the first female dispatcher, not only in her company at the Texas Stone Quarry in Cockeysville, Maryland, but perhaps in the industry as a whole. Her dedication and determination set her on a trajectory of continued growth and achievement. Soon after, Terri was promoted to a role of Equipment Information Coordinator, and for nearly a decade, she excelled in coordinating and managing the system, enabling repair shops to efficiently report and troubleshoot maintenance repairs and costs. She later transitioned into a sales position, becoming one of the pioneering women in the industry to sell various construction products, including aggregates, asphalt, and concrete. Her tenure in sales lasted an impressive 27 years, with the last 22 dedicated specifically to the asphalt industry. Terri retired after 46 years of dedicated service, and we are honored to have her join us on today's call and provide her unique perspectives and wisdom. Please join me in giving a warm virtual welcome to Terri as we delve into an enlightening discussion on unlocking success and the power of leadership in the asphalt industry.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. And gosh, it seems like your organization is so organized and the women are so impressive, and I'm happy to be here. But I thank you guys for inviting me. And like it started in the 70s, and who would have thought, I went to high school, and back then, a lot of us did not go to college just because our families could not afford to do that. Some people did, some people didn't, but we were trained to come out of school and actually we could go into a career. So with me, it was accounting or / what they call bookkeeping and secretarial stuff. So I took shorthand, I had typing, I had all the things that were related to the secretarial field. So I decided that I was going to go to work for a company that had educational assistants, and I was going to get my degree on my own, probably at night, which I eventually did. It took me 20 years. But I was there, I finally did it. My kids were there. My son was delirious. He was like, my God, Mom, how long do I have to go to school? But it was pretty funny. But anyway, I did it, and that kind of started it. But I did the secretarial stuff and I loved it. I mean, I had, it was great because we could get dressed up. We had all the great, actually, you couldn't even wear pants then. You could not wear any pants. Women had to wear dresses and women had to wear skirts, and your skirts had to be just above your knee. So they were very strict with stuff like that. So, but that's okay. So, it was very enjoyable. I had a great boss and I did that for a few years. And my boss had decided, he lived kind of far away, and he decided that he wanted to find something closer to home. So he was an engineer. He was a mining engineer, and that's who I worked for. And he decided he wanted to get a job closer to home. So he left, he found a job. And so that left me with a position of, I did not know what I was going to do. So I had a gentleman from the Texas quarry approach me and said, hey, we would like to try a woman in dispatching. And we were wondering if you might be interested. We think you might have the personality to do this. And we were wondering if you would be interested in trying this. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the quarry. So I said, well, tell me some more about it. So, he told me a little bit more about it. It was, of course, it was, hard hat, safety shoes, safety glasses. It was something totally different. And it would be working, of course, with all men. I would be the only woman there, which, that did not bother me. And of course, we discussed it somewhat, and then we got to the salary part, and I said, well, what about the salary? Well, because I was moving from a woman's position basically to a predominantly man's position, my salary doubled. So that just goes to show you back then the difference between, the inequality for men and women. So it was pretty amazing. So of course I jumped at the chance. I was, in an apartment, I was going to night school, I was working all these little part-time jobs and waitressing and so on and so forth. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. So I moved in that position, and the first day I showed up for work at the quarry, the guys were great. They had flowers for me when I got to the office. So that was a good thing. So the guys, my coworkers, were accepting me. So that was a good thing. But then it kind of went downhill from there for a while, because the customers did not. The customers were all men. They called in and they were, were very abrasive. They would cuss me out. They would hang up on me, tell me they had to talk to the guys. I did not know what I was talking about. They wanted to talk to the men. So this went on for a few months, actually. And I just would be very kind and considerate. And, finally, the guys that I worked with said, hey, this girl is doing the same job that I'm doing. You either need to give her your order or don't call back. And they would slam the phone down. I was like, oh my God, you just hung up on a customer. So anyway, they started to actually give me orders, and the smaller customers that called in, it actually worked better, because the men, if you did not know what you were looking for, the men did not have the patience like women do to take orders. I could explain to them, we had all the samples there. What are you using it for? So you learned a lot about the construction industry. So I would say, what are you using it for? Whatnot. And they would tell me, describe, and then we would kind of go through the thing. Sometimes they would come out to the scale house and we could show them, what it was. But the men did not do that. I hate to say that, they just didn't have the patience for it, but that's just the way they were trained, and it was just, I threw a whole different thing in, because I didn't mind working, with anyone to try to help them out, because they just didn't know. So anyway, so it kind of evolved and it got better. And probably after a year, everything was running pretty smooth. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of hours. I worked a lot of hours. We all had to take turns working one Saturday out of the month. So that was kind of hard when you're single, because, as everybody knows, when you're out single and you're going out with all your friends and you're out to 2:00 in the morning, you got to show up at the scale house at 5:00. It was tough. It was a tough adjustment, but it was only once a month. So it all worked out. But it was good. I mean, the pros on that thing was that it was less travel for me. I was a lot closer to home. So of course, it was a lot less expense. I got much better salary. And it was a better opportunity for myself and for women. Back then I didn't think about the women, being just the only woman there. But then after a little bit, I realized I was the only woman there. And a lot of the coworkers didn't treat me any differently. It was just mainly the people that I had to deal with outside. The cons of it, of course, were the fact that, of course, like I said, it was early hours, the rejection, the criticism, the cussing out, the hanging up, just, I had to stay positive. So, and it was just a very slow change in environment, but it eventually happened. And, breaking the ceiling, the glass ceiling, as they say, by myself was kind of a thing that I thought, gosh, am I going to be able to stand this? But after 3 years, it was really easy. It was just like a routine type thing. And that's kind of when I was approached by one of the manager who actually ran that division, who I, worked for indirectly. And he said, "Hey, Terry, I had been helping him. Actually, let me backtrack a little bit. I had been helping him a little bit with tracking maintenance on mixer trucks. So he said, you know what, this is working out. And this was like during the days that we were slow, or if it was a rainy day, he would bring some stuff up and I would try to help him track, get this set up with maintenance. And then finally he said, hey, we're going to start a system. And I wanted to know if you'd be interested in handling that position. So I said, so yeah, I thought, it was time to move on. So I said, yeah. And of course, it was another increase. It was another promotion for me. And I thought, great. So it was a little less hours. And that's kind of what I was looking for. So, it was another challenge. And for me, I'd already mastered the dispatching. And dispatching was fun, but after you master it, it's just the same thing. It's very repetitive. So I said, yeah, sure. So I decided to take that position. And it worked out really well. We came up with a very formal position. We actually searched for the position for the system, and we found one, this vehicle maintenance reporting system that some of the other, it was really just, new back then, but some of the other companies were using it. We traveled to the companies and just checked it out, and it worked. So we started doing it, and it was a thing where I would have to work with all the mechanics. Of course, everybody said, don't take that job. You're going to be working with the guys in the shop. Those guys are mean and abrasive. And, it's just going to be really hard for you. But it was the total opposite. It was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was a lot of work. I had to, in order to be successful in that position, I really had to teach myself a lot. I had been around the quarry. So I was up there. I knew some of the equipment. I knew what the quarry trucks were. I knew what the loaders were. I knew what bulldozers were, scrapers, the paving department. We worked with the paving guys because this company had a paving division also, had underground mining. It had a lot of really interesting aspects to it. So, we started the system, and what we had to do was actually go around and identify all the equipment at all the plants, which was a lot of equipment. And so we did that. We had these like little brass tags. We would tag the equipment and give it a special number. And that's how we knew, or the mechanics knew, whenever they worked on equipment, that's how they knew they would keep track of it. So anyway, so that worked out pretty good. And once we got that all established, then my job was to help these guys, figure out what equipment worked well for them, what was good for the company, what was not good for the company, what cost us a lot of money, what was the best performing equipment. So we kind of had these reports generated. So I've traveled in state and out of state. So I would go to all the shops, and we had not a huge amount, but we had plants then in New York, in Boston, Virginia. And there were no women traveling for the company. I was the only one. So it was kind of interesting. But it was still fun. I mean, I really enjoyed it. We would go to the shops, and some of the managers would say, Terry, I knew you were coming today because Bob over at the shop, his shop is like spotless. And they would they were happy to see me. So, which was good. I guess the way I won those guys over, and that part of it was, I made them think that they were in charge. I was just there to help them. Wasn't there to take their jobs. I wasn't there. I really couldn't tell them what to do because I could not perform the maintenance myself. These guys actually did the maintenance. I was just there to help them succeed, with the system. So it worked well. We actually, I made a lot of good friends. It was fun. I never dreaded going to any of the shops. It was just, it was an interesting time for me. And the one thing is, of course, this is many years ago, and the guy that I worked with, he bought all the equipment for the company, and the vice president was the one in charge of that, and Caterpillar. And I know there's somebody on the board that from Caterpillar, but years ago, so you're talking probably early 90s, Caterpillar had this big show out in Carefree, Arizona. So it was all men. So the vice president couldn't go that year. So he said, can I send someone in my place? They said, sure. Well, they didn't know he was sending me. So I show up in Carefree, Arizona, at this Caterpillar. convention, and I'm the only female. So it was really funny. It was very interesting. When I got into the classroom part of it, they, the guys would come out and they have their little skits they were going to talk about. I'm sure all kinds of crazy stuff that men talk about when women aren't around. They see me and they were like, "Oh, there's a woman here. Oh, I got to change this. I can't talk about what I was originally going to talk about." But it was fun. We had a great dinner. It was a lot of guys there. I got a lot of offers for jobs all over the United States that night, which was pretty funny. I was young then, and enjoyed every bit of it. But the thing is, when I did that job, I became pregnant with my daughter. So of course I went on maternity leave, and back then maternity leave to them, they really didn't even have maternity leave because there weren't women working in the field, it was men. So I had to go on what they considered short-term disability, which was 3 months full pay, which did not hurt my feelings at all. I was happy to do it. And I stayed off the whole 3 months. So when I left to have my daughter, the guy that I worked with, who was originally my boss, got promoted to buy equipment for the whole entire company, and they hired another gentleman. So when I came back, this guy knew nothing about equipment. So unfortunately, I had to train him. I was never offered that position, but I had to train him. I had to take him out in the field. I had to show him, what a quarry truck looked like. I had to show him all the plant equipment. I mean, it was fixed equipment, the mobile, the fixed, the plants, the crushers. I had to take him out on the paving jobs and show him what the rollers looked like and, what the pavers looked like. And that went on for a bit. And I think I got a little discouraged at the end. I kept coming home saying to my husband, "God, this is just ridiculous." I said, I got to teach this guy all this stuff. I said, I really don't understand why I do understand why they didn't offer it to me, because I was a woman. I was not even considered for that position. So, so in a short period after that, I saw that there was a sales position posted, and I thought, oh, wow, a sales position. I thought that sounds interesting. So I called to find out some information, and I went home and I talked there with my husband. I said, I'd really like to apply for the sales position. And I said, but I don't know what it's going to entail. And he said, go for it. You've done these other things, just go for it. So I said, okay. So I did. There were 8 of us that applied for the position. It was 6 men and 2 women, actually. And just to let you know, the previous jobs that I had when I left the dispatch position, they put a woman in there. So that continued the women moving into dispatching. And then the equipment information coordinator. So when I applied for the sales position, it was crazy back then. I had to go to a place and do like military. We were there for like 3 days, do military time testing. I had to spend time with a psychiatrist. I had to do all these aptitude tests. I had to do all of these interviews. They just wanted to make sure that they were matching up personalities with positions is what they were doing, especially sales, because the vice president was a salesperson himself. He knew how important sales is to a company. So anyway, so that's what we did. We went through all that stuff, and at the end result, I was the one chosen for that position. So the VP did not want me to take it. And the reason why he didn't want me to take it, first of all, I was a female. Second of all, I was married with young children. And there were some, after work commitments. And he felt like that was not going to work for me because I had to be home with the kids in the evening. My husband was allowed to babysit. I was just the one that was the only one that could take care of the children, I guess is what he thought. So my old boss said, well, I think she can do that job. I think she can do anything. And the sales manager fought for me, said, I want her to have that job. The VP said, well, I need to meet with her to discuss this. So it was like, oh God. So one morning I had to go, and I'll never forget, I went to IHOP in Cockeysville. I still remember I had silver dollar pancakes. I'll never forget. It was one of those days where it was like, oh my God. And we sat down, and he basically said, you were chosen for this position, but I don't feel like you're going to be right for it. And I don't think that you're the right person for it. So I listened to all his, idiosyncrasies, I guess you could say, about it. And I was very polite. And finally I said, look, I feel like I can do this job. And if I can't, I said, just let me try it. If I can't do it, I'll be the first one to admit it, and I will bow out gracefully. So we decided on that, and it was a trial period, for that. Needless to say, the trial period never ended. And that's how I more or less started, into that position. But it was it was a lot of training. I don't know if they thought that women just didn't have the aptitude that men had. I'm not really sure. And I don't want to sound like I'm, stereotyping everybody, but they made me go through training. I was in training for 6 to 9 months, but it was good training. And I'm glad that I did it because I worked in the labs. I worked in the asphalt labs. I pounded Marshalls. I did gradations on we had to go out and do belt cuts. I had a hard time lifting the bucket off of the belt cuts. When we had to go out to the plants, when they were crushing material, we had to go out and actually had to take a bucket and you'd have to pick a bucket up. And these things were 75-pound buckets. So it was like, oh my God. But it was very interesting. We had to do all the tests. I had to work in the labs. I had to go to concrete. I had to learn how to split cylinders. I had to go on concrete jobs and watch pours. I went out with all the salespeople. I went out and met the customers. I went to the asphalt plants. I went out with the paving group and I actually watched them pave jobs. And they explained to me some of the problems. That's how I learned some of the background with paving, which was really great for me. I went out and I actually, saw the jobs. I saw them in action. So I got to see, exactly what was going good for them, what was going, what was not going well. I got to see some of the problems when as salespeople, we would go out on jobs and customers are all standing around and they're all waiting for trucks, for asphalt trucks to get there with the deliveries. So I got to see that. So that was like a 9-month training period. And finally, I did get to go out and see customers. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. It was hard. I went with some of the salespeople at first, but one of the sales guys that I worked with, an older sales guy, he was a very good guy. He was in his 70s. And he told me, he just gave me I'll never forget it. He said, Terri, all I can tell you is if you go out and see your customers, you'll be fine. He said a lot of salespeople do not go see their customers. They just don't, they think they can do it from the office and they like being in the office, which I found out a lot of people back then that I worked with, especially a lot of the guys, they loved being in the office. They would come in and get their coffee and they would sit there and just relax all day, I guess, pretty much answer the phone and almost take orders, kind of like what we would call order takers. So, but anyway, so I figured out, I got to go out there. In order for me to succeed, I've got to be one step ahead of all these guys, because they're going to criticize everything I'm doing. So I did. I started thinking, well, as I was going out with the salespeople, what are they doing? What are they not doing that I could do? And I found that a lot of them didn't go to job sites. And job sites were so important because, as you know now, and anybody that's in sales or has been in sales, the people on the job sites are just can actually decide just as well as the people in the office. A lot of them have the ability to do that. The guys in the office will say, well, who do you like? Who has good service? Blah, blah, blah. And actually, those are the guys that really helped me more than anything. And you gain a lot more respect. You go out there and who are you? Where are you from? Oh my gosh. And, so they were really excited to see somebody. Not only that, they knew me then, like they do with other salespeople. When you go out, they could call you, Terri, I'm having a problem out here. You were out here, this job, whatever. There's a lot of dirt, or I've got these hills. I can't get the trucks. They can't deliver, so on and so forth. So for me, that was really a good thing for me, that it really helped me. I spent a lot of time with a lot of our sales guys, mainly when I trained with them, they all went to big customers. They didn't go to small customers. So I found out that when the big guys aren't busy, what do? You hope all the small guys come in. So I spent as much time, not as much time, but I did spend time with the small guys. I stopped by to see them. I let them know how important they were to us. And because of that, a lot of the little guys came in and all those sales started adding up. You got all the little guys coming in, especially when the big guys don't have their jobs in your area. So that was kind of that kind of worked for us also. As far as like going out and doing that, and the fact that trying to learn stuff, it was like on the job training. I remember when porous asphalt came out, especially when the asphalt industry, when that came out, the first time they had a pour, I went to the job site and I thought I was freaking out because I'm thinking, God, what if it doesn't go right? I mean, I'm out there. It's the first time one of my customers did it. Well, I went out there and they did a beautiful job with it. And right after they got done, it rained and it worked. It was like, we were all like, yay, it worked. It's like worked perfectly. It's like, it was success. So I could go back into the office and we have our sales meetings. I say, they would talk about the new products when we had different things, porous, when God, SMA, there were so many different products throughout the year. But when you go out there and you actually see it on the job, you get a different respect from the people, that they know you're there and you're out there with them. You're part of their team, your customer's team. And you actually know what's going on. So that was a big bonus for me, to do that. When I was in sales also, I did a lot of like aggregate. The main forte I did when I first started was aggregate. And I had to we sold aggregate, we sold concrete, we sold asphalt. And I mainly sold aggregate, but I didn't like selling concrete. I hate to tell you this, but concrete was never on time. I get there and all the people were like laying on the hill. I'm like, what's going on? Well, the trucks are late. The trucks are always late. I hate to say that, but they were always late for concrete. So I hated selling concrete. Asphalt was a different thing because most of the guys came in and picked it up. We hardly did any deliveries for asphalt. It was mostly they had their own trucks. But we did that, and I did that for a while. And then, of course, management changes, in your company. I was with this company now, and my duration there was 25 years with the first company I worked with. And so management changed, and they brought in a bunch of younger guys. Now, these guys are all college guys. They're out now and they're all trying to prove themselves. So everybody wants to be the best of the best of the best. So we're reporting to these guys and they're changing everything like you can't believe. But that's okay. They were just assigning customers. They decided they were going to put us in segments. So we all started doing the segments, and that worked out pretty good. But it kind of made you a professional, really professional in the little area that you worked in. I ended up doing specialty aggregates. That was so much fun, and I really enjoyed it. This was right before I left and went totally into asphalt. But the specialty aggregates, I mean, sandblasting grit to Bethlehem Steel, where the shipyard, where the shipyards were. I sold golf course sand to the guys that constructed golf courses. When they did Camden Yards, that's sand underneath the field at Camden Yards is a construction sand. And block customers, architectural guys. It was so interesting. It was just a way to just expand your knowledge and just get to be more part of the industry. But of course, as I'm there, one of my customers had bought an asphalt plant. He calls me up and he goes, Terri, we always said, this is one of my biggest customers, if we bought a plant, we're calling you, you got to come to work for us. I'm like, oh my God. So as they talked me into coming to work for them. So that's when my asphalt career started. So I went to work for them at an asphalt plant. And of course, I love that too. I still love the smell of asphalt. I love it when I'm driving around and I can smell it in my car. I wind my window down. It's like, that liquid gold, that stuff smells so good. It's awesome. But there's just a lot. There was a lot with asphalt to learn. There was, oh my God, so much to learn with asphalt. I mean, all the mixes. And, I learned a lot from the people that I worked with. I learned a lot from, as I was saying, Napa. Napa has some great stuff there. I mean, they have so much information. I should go there and gather stuff from my customers, which was really nice. My customers who aren't as versed as everybody else, I would go there and I would get information for them if they were doing sand mixes or whatever. And I give it to them, and they were so appreciative because they didn't belong to the associations like we all did. They didn't have the access to that. So there's just a lot of information out there that we have that you guys have among yourselves. I'm done, but you guys have among yourselves that you could do. So I would just say that was another thing that helped. And I just wanted to really just talk a little bit about just the keys to success when I was in sales. I mean, I started out with relationships, building them myself. When you go into sales, sometimes they'll tell you, some of the salespeople that you're working with, don't go to this guy. He's mean, or don't go to that guy. He's not going to buy anything from you. And I do got to tell you that there were customers that I went to that when I went in to shake their hand, they would not shake my hand. They thought I was a woman. I did not belong in that business. I mean, I was saying earlier that I went to lunch with a customer and he sat across from me. And just, it was when I was training and another guy was sitting next to me, another sales guy, and he just kept staring at me. I can't believe your husband will let you come out. Oh, okay. Well, I guess he figured we all need to stay home because a lot of the women did that. That was just the thing. But I made sure like the communication for me was good with my customers and with the office, or the plant. Hey, if there's a problem, I would go back to the plant, or hey, your guys, I can't get through. Sometimes we have problems with the phone system. It was just stuff like that. But I just tried to do what worked best for me. Customer visits, of course, I would go out there and all the time. Don't just go. For me, a lot of customers would say, we only see a salesperson when there's a problem. Nobody just comes to stop by and say, hey, when you want to sit down and just talk. And that's a bad situation really for both of you because you're trying to resolve something. So I made sure I tried to do that. I took lunch to the office where a lot of times people would just take the key people out of the office to lunch. But there's a lot of people in the office that can't go out that are part of that team. So that worked for me. That was another thing that worked really well for me. Like I said, any type of new material that came out, I tried to pass that on to the customer as far as educating. The guy that I worked with when I was at Aggregate, when I went to Aggregate, he ran all the crews and he was very, very good. And I sometimes when people want to do a P401 mix, those are the airport mixes. Everybody, I'm sure, knows that. But when they wanted to do that, it's like, you can't do that. I mean, those guys give penalties. They don't give rewards. They give penalties. That's how the federals agencies work. But we would, any of these special mixes, this guy, I said, can my customer call you? Can you explain to him about some of the problems in the operation? So he would do that. So it was a team effort for all of us. It worked out so well that the customer called it and said, I really appreciated him doing that. That gave me an insight as to what, if I want to do that job or I don't. And a lot of them didn't. Because it was something that it was something, like I said, they gave penalties. They didn't give rewards. So, and those were costly penalties. Now I think everybody probably knows that. I would actually go to the Maryland SHA, which I'm sure everybody has their state highway. They had a roundtable every year that they discussed any new products or any new thing that was coming down the pike for that year. So I would go there and I would go sit with the lab guys. I just say, hey, let me know whenever the roundtable is, and I'd like to go to it. So they would call me out, of course, because I'd buy them lunch. After we're done, I'd take them all to lunch. But we could talk about it. It was nice to get all the lab guys together. What do you guys think? The new products is going to be a problem. Is it going to be like, the LA, the Los Angeles abrasion? I mean, some of these, where are we going to get the mixes? Like the SMAs had to be a certain hardness. I mean, it was just a lot of things involved. And it was so nice to try to get everybody involved. And it made them feel important too. So it was a team effort. These guys would actually, I could call them and say, hey, I'm in Pennsylvania. Can you go? One of my customers having problems on his job. They would go out and they would cut cores for the customer and they would bring them back and they would test them for him. And it would cover us for one thing. It would say, hey, okay, that wasn't our problem. It's a compaction problem. And a lot of times it was the way they're rolling, whatever. We had a lot of really well-trained people. So that really helped. With the plant guys, I kind of try to include them. And I know Stephanie did that too. Stephanie and I worked together at FO Day, but we used to go, and I used to do this with a lot of the plant guys, take them lunch or reward them for good customer service. Because, everybody knows the plant guys will make you or break you. I mean, there's going to be a point where those guys, you have worked really hard to get a customer in and they may just like, oh, we can't take care of you today and hang up, so that worked out with the plant guys. We made sure and we would go down there and talk to them about it. Hey, answer the phone politely, hi, good morning. Can you just say, say who you are, that way they know who they're talking to. And it was silly things like that, but it gave the customer, total comfort, and it made them feel like we wanted their business, I guess. So, so that was pretty much it, that was the asphalt part of it, of doing that. I, of course, stayed in asphalt for so many years. I loved it. I probably would still be working today if I could, but there's some time in your life where you just gotta, stop. And I mean, I have no regrets of what I did, all the times that I've changed positions and gone from one to the other. And, with the dispatch centers, as time went on and I got into sales, all the quarries and other places I dealt with, they had all women in the dispatch centers at all the plants. So that was kind of rewarding. The women did well. I mean, they were very good, about working with customers and trying to help customers. So they're upbeat, they're nurturing. So it was really, really, really rewarding for me. So all I can say, I mean, I know people probably have some questions too, but my advice to you is don't be afraid to think outside of the box. I stepped out of the box all those times, and I look at it now, and I mean, it's so impressive. I mean, all the women in the asphalt industry and the construction industry and the jobs that everybody has. I just look at that and I think, oh my God, it's just changed so much, but the old saying, you've come a long way, baby. And it's true. And you women everybody's so accepted now. I went to dinner meetings, and associations were a big part of my success. And I say to everyone, join associations. If you get the ones that your customers are there, your customers, it's extra time you can spend with your customers, quality time. You can learn some stuff. You can, the camaraderie with everybody, you can keep an eye on your competitors. I always said that the associations are where it's at, and I learned a lot, and the exposure was really good for me. And I think that helped advance my career. So I would say, use your own associations. Like I said, Napa, Maryland Asphalt, I'm sure the local asphalt associations that everybody has, there's a ton of stuff you can do as far as training, everything, and it's just amazing. It's just amazing how it's changed. And you guys are making everybody proud by just continuing on what you're doing and just expanding. And I mean, it's, to me, I have to get online sometimes, just look at the women too, running equipment. It's like, God, it's so cool. I never saw any women running equipment back then. Eventually they did. They had women running quarry trucks, and they did have women running dump trucks, and I always loved it. When I see a woman driving a dump truck on a job, I'd always run over and say, how you doing? And the customers would say the women on the dump trucks are the best because they listen to them. They would listen to the customers. It was very, very, it was very rewarding. But anyway, so I would say, and the end result is, I was not afraid to make changes. I made a couple really different changes during my career. I would say, love what you do what you love, because life is so short. And here it is. I'm almost 70 years old. I'm going to be 70, in a year and a half. And it's like, where did my whole career go? What happened? It's like, but now I'm just loving life, traveling and having a great time. And I just like to say thank you all for letting me share my story. My customers used to always say to me, Terri, you got to write a book. And I used to laugh and say, yeah, okay, whatever. But there's just so many things that would happen that I can't even touch on some of them. It's just, some of it's so crazy. But I would like, if anybody has any questions, I would like to, answer anybody's questions or any advice I can give anybody. Or I have my mug, by the way, from the Women in Asphalt, and I love it. Thank you. I still wear my t-shirt when I work out. I guess there
Terri,
were.
no,
ahead.
I don't know if Arpine is going to read the questions. Arpine, were you going to read some, or Stephanie to Terri?
I have some that were pre-handed to me, but I thought people wanted to ask questions. So
Well, Terry,
I-
I want to make more of a comment than a question. This is Sheila Barkovich.
okay.
And I just want to say, you know what I think is great about your story? There's so many great things about your story, and I can relate to so much of it. But the courage that you had to go and take those new roles at a time when you didn't see other women in them is just outstanding. And I think a lot of times women, they second guess themselves, they shortchange themselves, they think, no, I don't think I'll be good at that, and they're afraid to take that step. So I just want to commend you for all the courage that you had to be such a pioneer and, pave the way for the others. It's great.
Oh,
Very
thank
inspiring.
you. Yeah, thank you. Have confidence in yourself. Don't ever be afraid of that. I mean, that's the thing that'll get you wherever you want to go. And don't ever think you can't do something, because you can. Just believe in yourself. That's what you have to do, and you'll make it through anything. It's amazing what you can make it through anything.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Terry, we got one question in from Stephanie Martella, and she asked, what would you say to the women on here today who might still be experiencing some of these gender biases, who are intimidated to speak up to help themselves?
Oh, that's a hard one. That's a tough one. But all I can say is, I think if it's you have to prove yourself. A lot of these people, and I know throughout the years I was tested, like I would go into a customer's office, they wanted to know if I knew what I was talking about. And I made sure that I was very versed. And I'll tell you, I go into a customer's office, and there were some things that they asked me, and I tried to make sure I was prepared for everything. I would say, be a good listener for one thing. Just make sure. It's hard. I mean, I know in this industry, I mean, some of the people just frown on women. I mean, and it's like it's ridiculous. I would just say, you've got to know what you're talking about and be one step ahead of them. Like I said, the thing is don't be afraid to speak up. And when I was in meetings, and like I said, when I went out on jobs and we talked about different jobs. Oh, I was on that job. Oh, you were? So see, you're really one step ahead of that guy who hasn't been out. And he really can't say anything to that, because you're the person that knows it, that's been out there. And you got to educate yourself. You've got to, if you're not sure, I mean, there's plenty of classes out there. I know the National Association of Women in Construction, I know we talked about that a little bit. They have a yearly convention too. And I don't know, there's probably some women that do belong to that also. But if you go to those, they have a lot of classes, things that will help you feel like you can present yourself better, that give you more confidence. But I think a lot of exposure in the industry is what it is. I gained a lot of friends, and a lot of them were male friends. I went to meetings years ago. When I went to these association meetings, I was the only female there. And men would shun me. They would not talk to me. There was very few men that did, but you know what? That did not bother me. I was there to represent my company, and I was there because that was part of my job. And I went and I got through that, and I just kept going. Be persistent. You just got to be persistent. Sometimes it's repetitive stuff, doing it over and over again, but you will eventually win them over. And the ones that you don't, hey, the way I looked at it, I had one guy in my office that constantly criticized me for everything that I did. But I just used to smile at him and just kind of chuckle, whatever, and he finally went away, and I just kept moving forward. Don't look back, just keep moving forward. I hope I answered that, but it's a tough one. But I just say you got the confidence in yourself and knowing where you're going, your education, make sure that you do everything that you need to do to prepare yourself to be one step ahead of the guys. That's all. Or even be an equal. You know what I mean? They think we're not equals. And that's probably still the case in a lot of places. But anyway, know that you are and do it.
Thank you, Terry. We got another question in from Yesenia with B2 Ox. And she says, as a salesperson, I hear a lot, we love our product and don't want to try something new. What advice will you give me to deal with those answers? How to get asphalt companies to try something new?
Okay. I had some of those customers, and I'll tell you, I remember I went to one of the guys at the asphalt plant called me one day and goes, they're all on material right outside our gate and they're getting it from blah, 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 blah. And I said, oh, really? So I jumped in my car and I drove up there and I went to the job site and I said, hey, what's going on? I said, I got a plant right here, you know. And he says, oh, I like this guy. They got great products. It's the best ever. You know, and I don't want to make a change and they give me good pricing, so on and so forth. So I said, okay, no problem. And I end up, you know, meeting with actually the owner was on the job that day. So I ended up catching up with him. And I said, look, I said, I totally understand. I said, I know you get satisfied with some of your suppliers. I said, I have my customers that are totally satisfied with me too. And I love that part of it. You know, I said, but you can't put all your eggs in one basket. That's what I used to tell them. Because if those plants are down, you're down. Unless you try somebody else or give somebody the opportunity to come in, let me come in and supply stuff, because I wasn't afraid to say, I'll be your backup guy. You know, a lot of people want all the jobs or none of the jobs. I would go and say, I'll be your backup. And because I did that and I showed them good service, we had beautiful, hey, that material. And I go out there and say, why are you using a state mix when you don't need a state mix? You can use a private mix on this job. Are there state requirements? No. Why are you paying all that extra money? I got a product at the plant that you can try, and they would try it and it worked out. So for me, that was a win-win for me. Would win some over. Some of them don't come totally, but I had a lot of customers that followed me for years, and it was just slowly getting in like that. But I would say, hey, that's the thing. You put all your eggs in one basket. Those plants are down, you're down, and you're not going to be able to go anywhere. Because if you want to call up then and say, can you help me out? Sorry, we're booked. You know, but if he's one of your customers, even a small part of your customer, help them out. I've had customers call me, they were hauling from the other side of the county, and they'd say, they shut the plant down, I'm in a bind. And my guys are getting ready to go home. Can you help me out? I call the guys up, I'd say, I'll buy you lunch. This is one of my customers. Can you help me out? And they would. They'd wait for the customer. A customer would come all the way across the county, pick up the load and go all the way back. And that meant so much to them. So I would say, I would hope that you could convince them to try to use you as a backup. Backups got me in as a full-time a lot of times. Hope that helps you out.
Thanks, Terri.
Sure.
Quick question here for you. Can you provide insights on effective negotiation techniques and strategies that have helped you achieve sales excellence?
Yes. Some of the things that really helped me was getting to know the customer. You really need to know who you're going to deal with when you go to the customer. Find out what's important to them. Everything's not important. You know, things aren't important to the same customers. You know, like I used to, I won this big customer over when I was in aggregates, and the owner of the company, when I went to meet with him, he said, oh, here she, well, you're with aggregate. Okay. All right. Well, don't talk to me about trucking. I don't need trucking, blah, blah, blah. The only reason you guys want to sell me materials, you want to do the trucking. I said, I don't need to do the trucking. I mean, if you want to come in and buy from me, you know, I don't need. So I think you need to sit down and know each customer individually, what's important for the customer. Go in there and know exactly if pricing important. It's so hard sometimes to convince customers about pricing, especially in asphalt. You know, years ago, you know, back in the 90s, liquid asphalt index was like $150. I think it's like 612 now. So that's how much the industry has changed. And it's so price conscious. You know, back then, heck, a lot of customers would buy material, they didn't even ask the price. They just call you up and say, I need, you know, 200 tons of 9.5. Okay, no problem. Where's the job and whatever. But to me, it was, and getting to know the customer, be a great listener. That's so key. I don't know what to say. I mean, yes, you can tell I've talked a lot since I've been here, you know, with you guys for this hour, but you know, you go in and sometimes a lot of salespeople go in and talk about themselves. Don't do that. Let the customer talk. Find out about them. You know, to me, I would go in and I make little notes. They'd say, oh, yeah. And I'd say, oh, wow, that's a cute picture. Is that your kids? Yeah, well, you know, I'm leaving today. I'm going to go to their baseball game or whatever. So the next time I came, I said, oh, how did the game go? It's important, you know, that I thought about their kids and that they like to talk about them, you know, their families and whatnot. And when I like took customers out, the thing that really helped me with making my strong relationships was back then men didn't want to go out with me at night by themselves. You know, it was just taboo because I was a woman and their wives are going, what, you're taking a lady's taking you out to dinner. So I made it so my husband and I took he and his wife out to dinner, or we took them to Oriole games, or we took them to football games, or we took them fishing together or whatever. And that made a strong, strong relationship with these guys. So with me, it was all about relationships. And that's what I think you really got to know the customer and just go in and I would ask them, hey, I would like to have some of your business. Can you tell me what's important to you? And those are the things you need to work on. I mean, those are the things when you go back, I can't have my guys waiting. I need trucking. Can you provide trucking? Can you, whatever they say, a lot of guys with me, it was labs, can you provide lab assistance? A lot of times we couldn't do it because we had our own paving division. It was too complicated or we were just too busy, but I would provide them with outside services. Hey, here's so-and-so and so-and-so. I give them a list of people, call them. They'll come out, cut corners for you. They'll do your test for you and everything will work out. So that was pretty much how I got through that part of it. So hopefully that helps.
Terry, this is Karen. I think it's funny that you know exactly what the liquid is for this month already.
Is that what it is? 6/12? I
Yes.
look every so often. That's funny. Yeah, it's a long way from 150, isn't it, Karen?
Yeah.
Oh, too funny. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. You got any questions for me?
Really? No, I just came to hear your story.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right. I think that's all the questions we got in today.
Okay.
Terri, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was truly inspirational to us all. And thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today for our Conversations to Lead and Inspire. I'd like to let everyone know that our next one will be on August 17 from 2 to 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And it will be featuring Audrey Copeland. She is the secretary of our board and the president and CEO of NAPA.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. You guys were all great. Congratulations and keep on making us look good. You guys are so awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terri.
Oh, you're so welcome. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.